Hi folks, today's video is about why Thai people struggle so much with speaking English. And for those that followed my channel, they will know that I do a lot of English language instruction to various students, particularly here in Southeast Asia and China. And I've kind of over the time specialized into various aspects of teaching English, particularly when it comes to students wanting to study in other countries and getting past the various English level testing exams that are there to make sure that they can speak sufficiently fluent English to be capable of carrying out their courses in these foreign countries. The two particular tests are IELTS, which is the International English Level Testing System, which is probably which without a doubt actually is the most popular system going at the moment. And the other one was an American one, TOEFL, teaching of English for foreign language students. Actually, just let me briefly say about TOEFL that it's kind of fallen into disrepute in various countries, particularly the UK, but not only the UK, because Panorama, the BBC program, exposed some years ago that their whole testing system was open to fraud. And this goes back to about 2018, I think. And they carried out investigations and then exposed TOEFL for what they were doing in various countries. And this resulted in many thousands of students losing their whole opportunity to study in foreign universities, and actually resulted in the UK of several thousand students being asked to leave the country because they put in fraudulent results to the universities. Anyway, that's TOEFL, and that's why I think maybe IELTS has now become the most popular one for students to take, because TOEFL is an American thing and IELTS is also accepted by many universities in the USA, except notably the top one, Harvard. They don't accept the TOEFL, they only accept, they don't accept IELTS, sorry, they only accept TOEFL. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, I apologize. So Thai students, they do struggle with speaking English, and there's several reasons for that I'll come back to shortly. But I want to start here by telling you my teaching of these for these exams has been going on now for over 3 years, and it was just over 3 years ago I was contacted by a particular Thai student, a lady called Nin, who born and raised in Khon Kaen on the west coast of Thailand, further up north from here in Pattaya. Anyway, this lady that contacted me then, she had already graduated from university, and she was a veterinary that was teaching in Khon Kaen University other students. And the reason that she contacted me was that she had an ambition and had been in conversation with a university in Hamburg in Germany, where she had hoped to go and do a PhD, the doctorate, so she'd become a doctor and hopefully on to be a professor from there, in Germany. Now, for those that don't know, a lot of these courses such as this, even though they're in foreign countries, Germany, France, etc., the courses are done in English because all the presentations, etc., all have to be in English, and they're assessed in English. So even though she was going to Germany to study in Hamburg University, she had to be proficient in English, and the university stipulated that she required a band 7, which is fairly fluent, actually. It's a high band to achieve in English speaking before they could accept her into Hamburg University to do this course. So she contacted me because she knew that I was, she had heard that I was particularly giving instruction on how to get through these courses, these exams. And I was very pleased to meet her. She was a lovely, lovely lady, a very intelligent lady. I knew that almost immediately. I was dealing with somebody very intelligent, as indeed, most of my students actually are, because they're all aiming for universities and things, etc. And they are mostly very high intellect, with just a few exceptions. So Nin contacted me and we had a discussion, etc. Yeah, I could see that she had very little experience of high-level conversation in English. She was very educated in English. She had obviously had to do some of her courses, etc., in English, but she had no experience of, very little experience of actual conversation, and therefore her confidence level, etc., carrying out English conversations was very, very low. Yep, that's not a problem. I've come across this with other students, and I know the problems that Thai students have, particularly when it comes to conversing in English. And that's, as I said, I will discuss that in a minute. So anyway, Nin. Yeah, I could see she needed help, and I said, okay, lovely to do it. When are you planning to take your IELTS test? She shocked me with her reply. She said, I'm going to be taking that next Wednesday. Oh my God. I knew right away we were in for a big problem. And I was really quite blunt and honest with her. I said, Nin, you are nowhere near ready to get sort of anywhere near a band 7 in IELTS. It's virtually impossible for you. She said, well, I've already booked it and paid for it, so I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to go down to Bangkok and take the test. Okay. I think we had about 4 days to 3 clear days, and she was taking it on the 4th day to work with it. So I said, well, as long as you're of the understanding that I'll try and help you as much as possible, and with an absolute fluke on the day, the right questions, and you in the right frame of mind, everything, maybe, just maybe, but I don't think so. She said, okay, we're not going to lose anything anyway. So she booked. I think for those 3 days, there was 4 lessons, 1 each day, which you'll let her practice, and then 2 the day before the lesson, 1 in the morning to try and iron out any snags, another 1 in the evening just to review everything, and then the next day she was traveling to Bangkok and taking the exam. Well, that was the way that ended up, and Nin went and took the exam, and sadly, and as expected, she failed to achieve the band she required. In fact, she came away with a band of 5.5, 5.5, which is mid-intermediate type level, I would say. So some of her English came into play, but obviously the high requirement for a band 7, where you've got to be virtually fluent and you've got to be able to use complex vocabulary, etc., introducing idioms and phrasal verbs and all of these sorts of things. There was just no way and any time to get Nin up to speed with them. And the other problem, of course, and I don't really know how she performed then, but I knew at the exam, but I knew from my speaking to her that she was struggling with a lot of the pronunciations as well, because Thais have a problem, and with the grammar as well, in that the Thai grammar structure is completely different to the English grammar structure. And Thais tend to struggle with various sounds, like the R sound that they pronounce. They tend to pronounce with an L, and the th. That's very difficult for Thais initially to say th. And F can be a difficult letter, except for when they're very angry, they can think of a few words that begin with F, and they seem to pronounce that okay. And the other one is the V sound. V, they tend to pronounce as W. So it's not so easy for them. But as I've said before, Thais are highly proficient and very, very good English speakers once they get to grasp with these various grammar aspects and getting their pronunciation, getting their lips and their tongue, etc., moving in the way that they've got to do to pronounce the words. And there's absolutely some superb English speakers here in Thailand, I must admit. Anyway, just to complete Nin's story, actually, she booked another test 6 weeks after that one, and together we had another 6 lessons working on her vocabulary, not so much as trying to expand it, but getting her to use semi-complex vocabulary that didn't necessarily use the areas it was difficult in speaking, just to get her through this test. And that's what I do with a lot of students, to completely immerse them in vocabulary in a short time doesn't do any good whatsoever. We need to try and get them using vocabulary that they're comfortable to use, that they can pronounce, that they fully understand the meaning, etc. And from there, also they can adapt it to the questions and the speaking aspect that come up in the test itself. So by learning a concentrated group of words, semi-complex, along with some idioms and phrasal verbs, etc., then not too many, but just a few, as I say, that can be adapted for the day, yes, they can get through the test. And if indeed they then go on to start studying abroad where they're speaking English, the English is going to come on tremendously fast anyway. So I'm quite confident about that. And as long as I feel that they're going to go and they can deal with the course that they're going to go and do, I don't think it's a problem. And I've never heard of anyone having a problem after they've got their test and going away and studying at another university. Nin has now been studying in Hamburg for, I reckon, just over 2 years. She went now not long, about 6 months into the COVID thing, and she's doing very, very well. She's well progressed down the PhD route, and I think she completes in about another 6 months or so, around that time, I don't know. But I'd just like to say that the majority of universities that I am aware of, and colleges, a lot of the colleges will accept a 6, a band 6 in IELTS. I'd also qualify that some colleges and universities, they say they'll accept a band 6, a band 6.5, a band 7. But sometimes, and remember that the exam covers all 4 disciplines. So you've got to score high in all 4 disciplines. And what do I mean by that? The reading, the listening, the receptive skills, and the writing and the speaking, the production skills are all fully assessed. So some universities might say, okay, they'll accept a 6, but they want a 6.5 in speaking. Just differentiate, because the speaking is the important part as far as the course is concerned. Probably as is the writing, actually. But anyway, that's quite common. So just for the rest of this video, I'd just like to show you exactly what is required to get a band 7 or a band 7 plus in the IELTS test. And I think for those that are not familiar with it, I think you'd be very surprised at the standards that's required. And as I've said on many occasions, I doubt very much that a large percentage of the native speakers that live in the UK or other English-speaking countries could maybe achieve these high standards that are required by the students. So let's start having a look at them. Okay, let's go through what the IELTS examiners are looking for in the speaking section of the IELTS test. They're looking for several things, and I've got 4 slides here that I'll quickly run through just to give you a good idea of where you need to be if you want to pass the IELTS at a level 7 or 7 plus. So let's start with fluency. So to score a band 7 or above, you must do the following. You must speak without long pauses. Do not take a long break between the words to think about what you're going to say next. Very important, understand the examiner's question correctly and develop your answer accordingly. Many students, when I'm teaching them, they think they know the question that's been asked, but they then start going off at a tangent and answering something completely different to what the question is. So it's important that students study and understand the question. Keep hesitation, repetition and self-correction to a minimum. Don't start going round in circles and saying the same thing over and over. And use a variety of sentence structures and don't give yes, no answers. They're wanting to see your breadth of English. So answering yes or no really doesn't cut the mustard for them. Here, grammar structures are also important, with correct tenses, etc. being used. Very important that you get all that right. Okay, let's discuss vocabulary now. To score band 7+, you must use some less common words in context. What do I mean by that? Meaning using less common words and knowing exactly what they mean, and you're putting them in your conversation in the right context. You should be able to throw in a few idioms and phrases in your answer also. The more precisely you can use uncommon words, idioms, you know what idioms are? And phrases, phrasal verbs, all related to your topic in your speech, the higher you will score. And this is what I'm talking about. The easiest way, and it's still not easy, to get past this test is to have a set of vocabulary. You don't need a lot of words. I try to get to around 50 if I've got the time teaching a student to know quite relatively high, medium, complex vocabulary that they can adapt easily for most questions. Also idioms, things like hit the nail on the head, spilt the milk, all these sort of things, you know, the elephant in the room, all these sort of idioms, we get to try and use them, and phrasal verbs also. So the more you use these, the better your result's going to be for sure, because that's what they're watching for all the time. Okay, the last area they concentrate on obviously is pronunciation. Your pronunciation has got to be very good. And this is where a lot of nationalities fail, as I've said before, and this is some of the problem with Thai speakers, that they just cannot get their tongue or their things round the more difficult words to pronounce. Not without a lot of practice, and some of them don't have time for a lot of practice. But with practice and with some guidance, yes, you can master the majority, in fact, all of the pronunciation. Practice, practice, practice is the answer to getting the presentation correct, the pronunciation correct. So to get a band 7, you should be able to pronounce words correctly. Bearing in mind that pronunciation is not the same as accent. Accent doesn't matter. They don't worry about your accent, whether it's Indian, Thai, whatever, Chinese, Russian. There's no problem at all, as long as they can understand that what you're saying. They don't worry about accent. Clarity, speak clearly. A lot of people, they're rushing to get their answers out and they're speaking far too quickly. And one of the side aspects of that is, if you're speaking quickly, quite often you're not giving the pronunciation the amount of attention that you should be doing. So just slowing your speech down a little bit can help your pronunciation a great deal. As I say, not too fast, but not too slow. Getting your word stresses and your sentence stresses, the intonation, the way you speak naturally, where you have, and this is done by the intonation, the rise and fall of your voice to emphasize words or parts of a sentence, etc., that gives it much more meaning and clarity of what you're saying. This is all very, very important when you're doing the IELTS speaking test. So there you have it. That's Nin's story, and it was a good way of amplifying the problems for a lot of Thai students here trying to learn English and trying to get past some of these tests, etc. Maybe I've also helped them for various interviews for internships, etc. Also, so I really enjoy teaching Thais. They're fantastic. They're fantastic people, as those that live here, like myself, already know. And over the last couple of years, I've made many friends in Thailand. And being in Thailand and speaking some Thai also, then it also helps a great deal. And many of these people that I've taught in the past have come to see me and sit down and we have a coffee or we meet up and have a bit of lunch or something like that. And we exchange our stories and find out how they're getting on. And yes, it's been very, very pleasant, particularly when they've gone on to achieve what they're trying to achieve and their future is looking good. So I teach on iTalki. The link to my teacher profile is in the description below. If you've got any comments, I'd love to hear them. If you're struggling with any of the aspects of English, then please drop a comment below. I'll try and answer you. And most of all, take care and thank you for watching this video. Bye for now.